Oh, hey folks, how you doing? I first of all want to say thank you to everyone who's kind of helped me by being here. Welcome, subscriber number 16, whoever you are. You need your head fucking examined, obviously. But welcome to the club here. I wanted to tell you, I kind of look a little bit snazzy, but I was able to land that job, and the people in there were exceptional. Really, I must say, they were exceptional. And it was really very difficult for me today because I have things I have to do and they're urgent, and I needed to do that. And I was late in doing this, and I hate getting involved with being late. So, I called in and let them know I was going to be a couple minutes late. And that's never a good idea to be late initially, especially, but the people were very professional. They were all women, as it were, and they were good people, as far as I could tell. As far as I could tell. This is opposite of what was going on down there at that other puzzling place that I went to. So I like this a lot better thus far. Now, I don't know anything about the place that I'm working at, and I won't have to go until Sunday. I thought it was going to be Friday when I was going to start working, but in some ways that's better. I will definitely do DoorDash one more time. I did get a couple jobs in today, so I'm going to have my hands full it's only Wednesday today, isn't it, or something? So I can get all my plasma stuff done and everything. I can get all that worked out. So, well, why am I with you right now? Well, a lot of you, especially number 16, you think you're smarter than me, obviously, okay? Wrong! I'm just kidding. A lot of you might be smarter than me for sure. And by the way, I hate backing up, which is what I'm doing right now. As good a driver as I am in forward, in reverse, I leave a lot to be desired. By the way, yesterday I got one of those Publix foot-long subs with the boar's head Italian. Folks, we may be there again today. That thing was so delectable and delicious with that multigrain bread, with all that stuff, all the accoutrements sprinkled over it. It was unbelievable, okay? So, what I'm going to do is, I've got a little ride to go home now, and it's time for me to give you a history lesson, okay? Now, MJ kind of digs this if he can stay awake, because MJ's got that big business, and, in between the porno dips, just kidding, MJ, I'm just kidding. I know you don't do that anymore. He has to check in on most of my videos that I do. I know he does that. Anyways, I'm just kidding about there. Anyways, folks, what I wanted to tell you about is lessons that you should know that you don't know because you don't know World War II. Now, I'm going to tell you something that has really shocked me as I kind of think about it. Now, if you understand history, sorry folks, I've got to put my tablet on charge because I know my phone here is going to be kind of batteried out after my doing this. So, I know a little bit about campaigns of war and so forth. I'm not extensive on it, believe me. I don't have a minor in it, etc. But I can help you folks understand a little bit better, okay? If I can be so bold. I know I'm going to catch shit for this, okay? Because you know that I collect German death cards, right? A lot of people know that I do that, and they get mad at me about it, and my avatar is nothing to write home to Seth about. But I'm going to tell you something. What Adolf Hitler did was astonishing with what he did, because what I'm telling you is, in specific, he was able to keep himself from getting killed and assassinated. That's a shocking thing, because in my opinion, Hitler really wasn't all that smart. He was really not all that much a technical whiz or a technical analyst because he screwed up a lot. And it's always easy to second guess. I wasn't there. So, like, I wasn't there with him and Goebbels and everybody else. So, I couldn't tell you if what he was doing was right or wrong at the time. But what he did was, do you folks understand that he survived to the end of the war intact? He survived to the end of the war. Now, why do I say this? Because people who know history will be familiar with what I tell you right now. There was a little man. His name was Bonaparte. What was his name? Bonaparte there, the guy from France. Napoleon Bonaparte. And do you know what happened to him? France, previous to 1800, had a tremendous navy. So they had a tremendous military, and they were taking lots of things, including the pyramids, and they were running roughshod even into Russia. And of course, he met his end there at Waterloo, Russia, but that's long into the second campaign. Now, what happened? Well, what happened with Napoleon was that it's kind of like his own people did him in. His own soldiers loved him per se, more or less. They loved him. And he had something that gave his troops confidence in him and made them feel better. Now, that being said, on that first campaign, this first campaign that he had a lot of men that were sick. They were sick, and they were dying on him, a lot of them. And this is just part of the game. This is part of the game. When you get sick, there are always things that kill men. There are always things, and women and all that. But, fighting men always have to pay the price with that because you're going to get sick with typhoid or whatever it was. And all sorts of things, It's happened all throughout history. Look at the Aztecs. They were beaten by smallpox. And, that was Mexico, modern-day Mexico. So Napoleon was still able to manage some victories, but he was basically told to shut up after his first round. And then he made a second campaign. He kind of snuck out and was able to get the people motivated again to do it. And this is after losing an awful lot of men. So he did. He did. And boy, folks, I'm going to stop at Publix. I'm going to get another one of those sandwiches, those boarhead Italian. Man, my mouth is watering for that. You don't know what you're missing with that. I'm going to get that. I'm all Taco Bell'd out anyway, and chickened out. I've had enough of that. And pizza out. They knew that Napoleon had this way about him to motivate men and to make men loyal to him. And what happened was he got them into the second campaign, and he was trying to negotiate with the leader of Russia. And to some degree, they negotiated, and I know Napoleon, was it Philip? I forget who it was there, King Philip or whoever it was, but he was able to make some attraction there in Russia. The problem is he had the same narrow thinking as Adolf Hitler, and that is when you go on Google Maps and you go out and you zoom out and you go up into the clouds, not down where you can see the houses, one of these massive tanks that they had, these Mark IVs or the Panzers, it wasn't even not even a speck on that map. It wasn't even a speck on the map of Russia. And what does that tell you? Well, it tells you that Russia is enormous, and that it would swallow up, even without opposition, if you had to have troops, it would swallow up millions, not hundreds of thousands, millions alone in Ukraine before you even got into the Moscow region. So the reason I tell you about this is kind of has something to do with the scam right now. That's why I'm kind of mentioning this to you, and I'll kind of put it all together. So I'm on I-95 right now, and kind of bear with me if I seem a little bit more confused or disoriented than usual. I actually didn't drink last night, so I actually feel pretty good. I've been having like one shot for my foot, but my foot has been feeling better and the swelling is down, which is the right time because I got a job as a rover now. So we'll have to see if my foot can tolerate it, and it better, because I need it. I need this job. You can tell how insignificant anything is when you look at the size of Russia. Okay? Now, why did Hitler go into Russia, and why are so many of my death cards from Russia? Well, because Russia was important. Why? Because Adolf Hitler was smart enough to know that Russia was the linchpin. It was by far the biggest, unless you looked at China, but China was no threat. China was not really capable of mounting any kind of, they were living in, bamboo houses, for God's sakes. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like you think. Even in Russia, it probably wasn't very glamorous with their military. They were still using biplanes in many parts of the Ukraine there. And in Russia, they still had biplanes, which are two-wing planes. In 40, when they attacked them, or 41, early 41, because they attacked Poland first and then France, in 1940. So, he was feeling his oats. Hitler was feeling his oats. And he made an all-out effort to take out Russia. Why? Because a tremendous amount of Russia were made up of Jews. And that's the simple truth. A lot of people don't want to admit that. Even the Russian people themselves don't like to talk about that. But there were an awful lot of Jews in Russia. And some of them, I'm not going to say all of them, but some of them were disenchanted with the United States in the 1930s, and they left. And many of them went to Poland, many of them went to Germany, and many of them went to Russia and Ukraine, simply because they thought that it would be better there, and that the people weren't so oppressive to minorities such as black people. That's why they did that. If you look at Hitler's personality, Hitler didn't fool around much. Hitler wanted global domination, as most tyrants do. So why I brought about Bonaparte, Napoleon Bonaparte, the reason I bring him up is because his own people had to stop him on his third attempt after he lost at Waterloo. And they had to take him and send him to an island off, East Africa there, isn't it? I forgot where it is. It's Elba Island. And it was an absolutely horrific place. He had a woman with him, and she agreed to go with him because they were exiling him there. I forget what year it was, but somewhere in the early 1800s. And when the woman found out where they were going, she, from one story, said that she tried to jump over the ship. She wanted out because this place had a miserable, mean temperature, and it was foggy until 11 or 12 o'clock in midday. Fog. So it was really Elba Island was really not very well. It was not really looked after. The people there didn't take care of the island because there was no money. And in his final days there, he did make the place more livable for the people. And he essentially did what a military leader would do, and that was he took control of that area and he tried to make it a better area. That's what he tried to do. That's what Bonaparte's famous for those of you who don't know. And he did help the people there. Bonaparte was also a sexual pervert. I'm kind of making that up for you a little bit, but he had his Josephine there, or whatever her name was, and she was from a good family and so forth. And he wrote to her constantly, but even on his campaigns. But his racy letters were met with pretty much indifference by, I think it was Josephine there, but whoever his love interest was there. Women were much more guarded at that time of their sensuality and sexuality, to say the least. Because you're talking about just pre-colonial days there. Actually, it was in the colonial time, just before the Victorian age, I guess. And women were very, frumpy at that time, not just in England. So, they had to put an end to Napoleon from his own people, because they knew he would start up again and get 200,000-300,000 men together, and off they'd go. I mean, we are talking about the place with the French Foreign Legion, for God's sakes. So don't sell France short. They were unbelievably powerful as a military force pre-1800. So why do I mention Adolf Hitler? Well, I mention it because he survived to the end of the war, and supposedly he took his life. That may or may not be true. It's probably true, but it may not be. And the idea, and what got Napoleon into trouble, was that he frittered away his troops in the cold. So they got sick, and they were having a difficult time in fighting because they were sick. I mean, this is just par for the course. You have to feed men, you have to take care of them, and a doctor at that time was a guy with a little sickle and a funny hat, and he had some knowledge about bodily humors and things like that. It was not what it was cracked up to be. You might have some very basic, rudimentary medical knowledge, but it would be in the line of like broken bones and things like that, not bodily humors and so forth. So it was amazing that he was able to even fight with his troops because they were so sick. That's what I've read. Now, Hitler, although I didn't hear about that, although a lot of his men were not properly supplied in Russia, and they were freezing to death and they were starving to death, some of that was on purpose. Hitler set up what they call fortress cities. Breslau was one of them. There was another one. There were a few of them. I think there were 6 or 7 of them. And he made it to where you could not leave. If you were invited to that party, you were there to the last bullet, or spit on them, or throw rocks at the Russians as they were advancing. They were fortress cities and to be held until the end, literally. This is what got Hitler into trouble, because the Panzer generals didn't like it. They wanted their men to fight, but they wanted their men to have a reasonable, or as best a chance that they could live, to at least fight other battles and not just be put like pawns on a chessboard and say, okay, we're going to sacrifice that one, and they're going to... And it wasn't good, folks. It wasn't good what he did, because he wouldn't let them out. He wouldn't let them retreat. So as a result, you had all of these soldiers that were stuck in Breslau and all these other places, and the Russians were literally just surrounding them and just breaking the windows, window by window, and killing them. And I was watching where it was so bad, and it went on for so long, and it was hard to supply them, because the Luftwaffe could drop supplies to them a little bit and reload them a little bit, but after a while it got so pointless. The troops were running out of everything, including food and everything. And I remember watching one where the Russian guy was explaining it. He was a soldier from that time, and he said that he went in, and he said that they were squeezing the trigger with all their effort, and they couldn't even get the trigger to pull because they were absolutely near death from exhaustion. The Germans were in those places. And they did everything. They tried to drop them iron crosses and all these different medals, to try to make them fight harder. But, Hitler was a prick about that. So some of the generals, especially in the Wehrmacht, which is the tank divisions, they tried to assassinate Hitler. And they were dead serious about it. They did not like to see brave men frittered away with such lack of concern. Because going to Breslau was a slow death sentence, if you understand what I'm saying. So they made plenty of attempts on Hitler's life. Now, why did Hitler survive to the end of the war? Because Hitler knew what we didn't know, what we don't know now. That's my opinion, by the way, and this is my opinion. So you can call me Hitler if you want. I'm not trying to say that I'm Hitler. I'm telling you, I understand now what he thought he was up against. Okay, we'll leave it at that. What he did was he attacked Russia first, and he lost millions, friends, millions, not hundreds of thousands of men, millions. They don't know what the true the POW rate was. It could be from 2.6 million to over 5 million, just POWs, not including the killed, the ones that were killed. So what I'm telling you is, even with all these losses and all of these bad feelings with these generals of the Wehrmacht, and, well, not the Luftwaffe, the Luftwaffe, because that was it Goering? And Goering was buddy-buddy with Hitler. Hitler thought he could do no wrong. So they failed too, because they just couldn't get the job done. They couldn't get the job done with aircraft. That's another thing they learned about warfare. You have to have boots on the ground. You can't win with aircraft. You can't. You have to have boots on the ground. They learned this the hard way in World War II. So, what was it that Hitler was afraid of? Hitler was afraid of the Jews. He was afraid that they would do something that would, he was afraid that the Bolsheviks, which was essentially them, at that time, it was the Russians, and a lot of the Russians were Jewish, and Polish, and even some of the Germans themselves. He thought that they would take over and demand equality. But you see, folks, that's easy to talk about trying to get equality. But it turns out to be a different game when you have to actually put it into place. Because it goes against human nature. Trying to make everybody equal is best to let it happen over a period of time. That's how it's almost always best, in my opinion. And the idea to Hitler of having people that were all equal was as distasteful. Sorry, folks. It was as distasteful, making sure it's still on here, as, drinking mouthwash to you folks or something like that. You know what I mean? It was distasteful to Hitler, because Hitler, if you look at his Hitler Youth, they were started wearing these little leather straps and these little Boy Scout uniforms young, and that carried on. And then they'd go into the RAD and Hitler Youth, and they were amazing men because they were well trained and with the program and devoted to their fatherland. So that's what Hitler was afraid of. That's what that was all about. And I'm wondering if he didn't know what he was talking about, because right now we are in medical takeover, and it could get far, worse, folks, to where you have no liberties at all, because it depends on what they bring about and what disease comes up or whatever else comes up, and you're required to do whatever. This is Bolshevism. It's just medical Bolshevism, in my opinion. That's not to say it's fact. That's my opinion. I believe that it's the people that Hitler was afraid of. It's not just them. So, what makes it so amazing that Hitler survived pretty much the war? The fact that, yes, he had assassination attempts, but why was it that he wasn't killed? There's a reason for that. Because I'm trying to remember the name of the thing. I have a couple of the cards. The Nackenstil, I forgot the name of it. But he had his own people that would protect him, that were his own people that worked with him to drive, to protect him. And it was Göring, too. Göring had his own people. He used to have the whole train. And he used to have the whole place escorted. That's why he never got bombed on a train, because they were very careful about that. And Hitler knew that the only way that you could assure that your country, and that you and your country, particularly if you were the leader, would be able to survive through trying times, is to look at the people and put them through the ringer, and anyone that wanted to work in that Naschflinch, whatever that is, the one that was Hitler's personal guard, they had to pass background checks, and they had to be Germans. And I mean Germans going way back, and they checked everything, including how many cavities you have. And if you think I'm kidding, I'm not. There were rules about that. Some of the SS could not get in. They relaxed it after a while, but you couldn't even have cavities. If you had cavities, you couldn't get in to some branches of the SA and SS. That's a fact. I read that. So there were very strict rules, and it was because they had such a high success rate of protection of their leader, the Fuhrer, and others. Why do I mention that? Because the United States, through Bolshevism right now, Javits started it in, 65? Where he started letting the immigrants come in. He started letting them come in, and he said it wasn't fair. They didn't have the money, and they deserve to be able to come in too, not just people with money, which there's some truth to, but it opens up a Pandora's box, and that's exactly what happened. So now, the Bolsheviks here in this country of the United States, and you know who they are, many of them are doctors, by the way, Doctors Without Borders, who would like nothing better than to empty out Africa and take care of these people, and your lifestyle could come down a bit in order to be able to not have people suffering. And there's people suffering everywhere, not just in Africa, in other places too. And this is on the horizon. This is what's utmost in mind, in my opinion, right now, with what's going on. That's why I tell you, you're going to be eating insect diets. Not that you're going to be eating insects, but the protein will come from them. It's got to, because you're going to have to start to understand that people that are suffering in Sudan or whatever else, that's not going to be acceptable anymore. You can't have that anymore. You've got to, something has to be done. So your lifestyle will just have to come down a little bit. There'll be another tax. That's what I think it is. You may differ in your opinion. So they knew, probably the artificial intelligence, you certainly didn't need it. If you had some sort of a understanding of history, you would have known that there was a certain time. The Bolsheviks knew this, that as soon as there was enough Bolsheviks here, and there are plenty of Bolsheviks in the United States right now, and as soon as you had enough mindless immigrants that don't understand virtually anything, I'm sorry to tell you that, that's just my opinion, doesn't mean it's fact, but these people, I've talked to people, okay, like Spanish people here, I've talked to them and I say, it doesn't bother you to be restricted to where you have to wear a mask? Why would it bother Spanish people? They've lived under dictatorships where that's nothing. The Spanish and the Latinos don't understand anything about oppression. That's for them to be told to go out and do something, and it's part of what they have to do by their leaders. That doesn't mean much to them. They don't value freedom. They don't even understand the concept of civil, personal liberties. If they have to stay 6 feet away from each other, or if they don't let their kids go to school, to them, it's just what you do, what the person in charge tells you to do. They don't have any concept. Same thing probably with the Chinese. They don't have any concept of personal liberties. Don't think the AI and the people that are elites, like the guy who pulled in with the Rolls Royce with the suicide door, who wasn't wearing masks. Nobody in their family was wearing a mask, by the way. Brand new Rolls with suicide doors. Don't think they don't know this. It was time, folks. The mindless Latinos, and I know a lot of you get mad at me about this, they're clueless. They don't value or understand freedom. Adolf Hitler would never have put them into his military. Never! Especially not around his personal guard. And that's why Hitler survived the war right to the end. Because he was smart enough to know what he's up against. You folks don't, to a great extent. And now we are going to pay the price, because there's no one left to be able to be a champion of us. We have a lot of Bolsheviks. We have a lot of brainless Latinos. We have a lot of brainless Orientals. We have a lot of brainless Filipinos. We have a lot of brainless whoever. You don't like it? I'm sorry. That's my opinion. That's the way I feel about it. That's what I've experienced here by talking to them. They couldn't possibly care any less about wearing a mask or anything else. It's no problem. It's what you do when your leader tells you. Folks, that is your lesson about Napoleon Bonaparte, Adolf Hitler, and the Third Reich, and why Namkinchev, I forget what the name of that, those troops were that protected Adolf Hitler and all the high brass. They did it for a reason, folks. And it's going to get worse and worse with the Bolsheviks. You'll lose more and more and be more and more delighted by it. You really will. You'll really learn to appreciate your captivity and demand more. God bless you, folks. I know you're all mad at me because I'm supposed to be nice and fair, and I'm a white racist. You can call me whatever you want, except late for dinner. Speaking of that, I'm going to go to Publix and get one of those things again. They were so yummy. I'm going to have another one. And thank you, number 16, whoever you are. I'll name my child. My next child will be named after you if you want to leave your name, okay? First name. Take care of yourselves. God bless you. Bye.